Welcome to Through Our Eyes, where we see thyroid eye disease through the lens of those who live it every day. I'm your host, Andrea Perryman. Before we dive in, I want to remind you that everything we discuss in this episode is intended for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. Please consult with your doctor or healthcare provider for any medical concerns or treatment decisions. Also, if this is your first time tuning in, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and tap that subscribe button too. We've got so much more coming your way. When I was first diagnosed with TED, I remember searching for resources and feeling like something was missing. Real voices, real people sharing what it's like to actually live with this disease. That's why I started this podcast, because behind every diagnosis is a human story. And if we want the future of TED care to look different, we also have to start telling the truth about what it's like from all perspectives. Today's episode is special. I'm joined by Julie Owens, and let me tell you, Julie is a force. She's not just navigating life with TED and Graves' disease. She's on a mission to make sure that no one feels invisible in the healthcare system. She's powerful, passionate, and deeply honest. What inspired me most about Julie is how she's using her voice to shine a light on the realities so many people face but rarely see reflected, especially in rare disease spaces. Her story is a reminder that one voice, when used with courage, can start a movement. It's no secret that people of color are underrepresented in clinical trials and advocacy efforts for conditions like TED. That lack of visibility can lead to real disparities, treatments that aren't tested across diverse populations, and education that doesn't speak to everyone affected. Julie's here to change that, so let's dive in. Julie's story is about more than just TED. It's about reclaiming your voice, challenging the status quo, and showing up in spaces that weren't built with you in mind. Julie's story really resonates with me as a patient because when you live with TED, life can take an unexpected turn at any moment. Thyroid eye disease is unpredictable. Even though Julie had been treated for Graves' disease and was stable for years, TED showed up later completely uninvited and turned everything upside down. It's kind of like thinking you've made it to the end of a horror movie, only to realize the villain wasn't really gone. TED has that big surprise energy, and just when you think you're in the clear, it sneaks back in with a plot twist. What's wild is up to 50% of Graves' disease patients can develop TED, but the timing is all over the place. Some get eye symptoms before their thyroid issues, some at the same time. And then there are people like Julie where TED shows up years after treatment. Let's hear more about Julie's journey and how she fought back to regain control over her health and her life.
My name is Julie Owens. I am a thyroid disease patient, Graves' disease patient, acromegaly patient. I am also an advocate for thyroid eye disease, Graves' disease, acromegaly, rare disease, autoimmune disease, and Alzheimer's. My journey with thyroid eye disease started back in, I would say, 2000, and right during the pandemic. Prior to my diagnosis, I had my thyroid removed. I had a total thyroidectomy in 2018. And then moving forward to 2020, I just started showing a lot of symptoms with runny eyes, puffiness around the eyes, a lot of inflammation, tired, couldn't get my thoughts together, you name it. A lot was happening during that time. And so, again, it was during COVID, so there were a lot of moving pieces for everyone. And I finally got an appointment with my endocrinologist, and the endocrinologist just took one look at me and she was like, "Oh my goodness, you have a lot going on." I could tell. So physically, she could see that I had a lot going on. And then as we started digging a little bit deeper with blood panels and such, then it came back that I actually had Graves' disease. And so she treated me for the Graves' disease. And she said, you know what? I need to refer you out. I think you have a lot more going on. And then that's when I met a physician that's a neuro-ophthalmologist. And then she gave me the diagnosis of thyroid eye disease in the same year.
Julie's experience highlights something a lot of people don't realize. Even if you've had your thyroid removed, it doesn't mean you're in the clear when it comes to TED. Those antibodies can still hang around in your system, quietly stirring things up behind the scenes. And then, out of nowhere, boom, your eyes start changing and you're left wondering, what the heck is going on? And to have all this happening during a global pandemic, I mean, talk about the worst timing possible. The stress, the isolation, the delays in care, it was like the perfect storm for autoimmune flares. I can't tell you how many patients I've met who spent years bouncing from one doctor to the next just trying to get answers. The average time to get a proper TED diagnosis is around 16 months, but for some, it's way longer. So I was curious, did Julie face the same roadblocks I've heard so many others describe, or was her path to diagnosis a little more straightforward?
I was very fortunate when it came to getting the diagnosis and the treatment. Very fortunate. So the endocrinologist diagnosed me with Graves. And then I got an appointment with the neuro-ophthalmologist, which was just a few months later, got the diagnosis of thyroid eye disease. And so further down the road, both of those physicians worked very well together. And I'm very appreciative of that. So when it came to diagnosis and then moving forward into treatment, one of the biggest challenge was getting the treatment in a timely manner. I was not denied the treatment. However, it did take a while to get started with the treatment. So that was the biggest challenge.
Julie's diagnostic journey? Honestly, she kind of hit the medical lottery. Her doctors actually listened, moved quickly, and got her on the right track, which unfortunately isn't as common as we'd like it to be in the TED world. But even with that dream team, her story shows something important. The system still throws up a ton of roadblocks. Getting treatment approved can feel like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while wearing oven mitts and being timed. Sure, it's technically possible, but why does it even have to be that hard? Thanks to step therapy, aka fail first approach, patients are often forced to try outdated or less effective treatments before insurance will approve what they actually need. And that kind of delay, it doesn't just mess with your eyes, it messes with your life. TED doesn't just hit you physically. Studies show patients lose an average of 48 days of productivity at work. That's nearly 2 months of trying to function through blurred vision, pain, and exhaustion. Some even have to reduce their hours or leave work altogether. So, yeah, even when you've got the right doctors, the system itself can be the biggest barrier. That made me wonder, did Julie feel like her medical team truly understood her? Because let's face it, being heard is one thing, but being understood, that's a whole different level.
I did feel that my endocrinologist knew what I was going through, and I definitely felt extremely comfortable that my neuro ophthalmologist knew exactly what I was going through, and that is what helped the journey. It was a difficult journey, but however, I knew that I had someone that was there with me throughout the entire process.
Being understood by your doctor makes all the difference. It's like the difference between someone who's read about skydiving and someone who's actually jumped out of a plane. Sure, they both know the mechanics, but only one has actually felt the adrenaline rush and knows what it's like to take that leap. That's the kind of empathy patients need and deserve. And the research backs it up. Patients who feel understood by their providers are more likely to stick to their treatment plans and actually feel better about their care. One study even found that patients who rated their doctors high on empathy had 40% better control of their conditions. 40%! That's not just a feel good stat, that's real impact. But here's the thing, Finding a TED specialist, it's like finding a needle in the haystack. Less than 1% of ophthalmologists in the US specialize in this condition. That means a lot of patients are stuck searching, waiting, or even driving across state lines just to see someone who truly gets it. Julie was lucky. She found a neuro-ophthalmologist who actually specialized in TED. I wanted to know, did having that kind of expert on her side change things for her? Did it help her feel seen not just as a patient, but as a person?
She most certainly was a thyroid eye disease doctor and a specialist. She definitely knew her stuff. And I later found out as I kept having doctor visits that that's mainly what she did. She treated a lot of thyroid eye disease patients. And so she was very well versed and very familiar with different treatments that may work for various types of patients. So, yeah, I was very fortunate in that area.
Julie's experience with a dedicated TED specialist highlights something huge. When it comes to rare diseases, expertise isn't optional, it's everything. It's like taking your car to a mechanic. Sure, any decent one can look under the hood, but when you've got a rare model with all kinds of quirks, you want the person who's seen it all before, who knows every weird noise, every blinking light, and exactly what to do. For TED patients, that kind of deep understanding isn't just nice to have, it can literally save your vision. The active phase of TED, the time when symptoms are actively progressing, usually lasts anywhere from 1 to 3 years. That's the window. That's when the right treatment can stop long term damage in its tracks. But here's the tricky part: TED symptoms don't always scream eye disease. They can look like allergies, aging, even sinus issues. And without a specialist, a lot of patients get brushed off or misdiagnosed. Having someone who knows exactly what to look for can be the difference between catching it early or living with the consequences for years. What's so remarkable about Julie is that she didn't stop with just her own healing. She turned her pain into purpose. She stepped up and said, I'm going to help others find their way, especially those who don't see themselves reflected in patient brochures. That kind of advocacy, that's what moves the needle. That's how change really happens.
So, first being diagnosed with TED, I had no idea what TED was. And then as I started doing my research, and because, when you're in the moment, for me, when I'm in the moment with the physician, getting diagnosed, what's next, the follow up and whatnot, honestly, I'm not there. I'm physically there, but mentally I'm not there because my world just got rocked, right? So I got diagnosed with something that I just totally don't understand. So after the fact is when I get home and things have settled down, that's when it really hits me and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? So with that being said, diagnosed with thyroid eye disease, and I'm seeing these commercials on television and I'm like, what is it? Then I don't have any relation to anyone in the community that is going through the same exact thing. And not only in the mainstream community, but in communities of color. I had no one to connect with. So this is another layer here that's added for me. Okay. Here I'm diagnosed with TED. And then as a woman of color, how do I really get the help and the resources that I need? So I honestly had nowhere to go. So I was solely dependent upon my physician. And thank goodness. And Andrea, you and I, when we first met, we hit it off. I'm the type of person you see what you get, right? So I generally cool. I'm magnetized to people who are intriguing and who have all this information, and I'm just sitting there clinging on. So that's exactly what has happened throughout my journey. I have clinged on to others who are sharing a similar story. And quite honestly, the people that I have resonated with are not people that look like me. And initially, I was like, you know what, that's okay because I'm here to get what I need to get. And how can I help others along with this journey? So then, as I started feeling a little bit more comfortable with learning more and making connections, I said, you know what, it doesn't stop here. I have got to take this information and I must take it back and I must share because I know for a fact I'm not the only one that's going through this. Because, right, I'm meeting all these people in these spaces and places that are experiencing what I'm going through, even though they don't look like me. I know for a fact there are people that look like me that are going through the same thing. So then that's when I said, you know what, Julie, you already have advocated for education for over 30 years. You've started advocating for Alzheimer's for the last 3 or 4 years. Now it's time to advocate for thyroid eye disease. And then it's time to find people of color who are experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing. So that basically in a nutshell has given me that passion to take the information back because I'm not hearing it and I'm not seeing it in communities of color.
I'm not going to lie. Julie's words hit me hard. Imagine scrolling through endless patient resources and almost never seeing someone who looks like you. Not in the pamphlets, not in the support groups, not in research. It's like being invisible in your own disease. And you know what's wild? Studies show that representation in healthcare materials can actually influence treatment outcomes. A 2023 study found that patients are 40% more likely to stick to treatment plans when they can see themselves reflected in the people in those materials. I can't say this enough. TED doesn't discriminate. It affects people of every race, color, age, and gender. And it's already such an isolating disease on its own. That's why it's so important for patients to know you're not alone and you're not the only one going through this. Julie makes a powerful case for why diversity in TED research matters, but it also raises a tough question. If the benefits are so clear, why aren't more people of color participating in clinical trials? The stats are staggering. African Americans make up about 13% of the US population, but only 5% of clinical trial participants. Hispanic Americans, they're 18% of the population, but just 1% of participants. So I asked Julie something I've been thinking about for a long time. How do we begin to repair generations of medical mistrust rooted in historical trauma? And how do we build pathways that feel safe, that feel welcoming, especially for patients of color who've been made to feel like the system was never built for them in the first place?
Number one, the data that is out there is not, in my opinion, a full representation of our communities. And it's a number of reasons I'm almost certain why. Number one, breaking the stigma of what's clinical research and who should be participating in clinical research. And three, the trust. You know, as people of color, we have a lot of issues when it comes to trust with a lot of things. And mainly when it comes to the medical field, there's a distrust that can go back from with the Tuskegee Institute study that was done, and it wasn't transparent with what the intentions were with that. So a lot of individuals may have that concern, oh, I don't know what they're going to do with, the samples that they give, or what are they really giving me? Is it really going to help me or hurt me? So that's number one. And I think the way to do that is to change the face of clinical research, right? So when you're reaching out to others, making sure you have a full representation of those who are involved in clinical research. And I could say that I have now I'm so interested in seeing the results and the beginning, the middle, and the end when it comes to clinical research. And I have to tell you, I've been fortunate to see firsthand of some of those different types of research, and I do not see people of color that is included in research. You see research in Switzerland, you see research in Australia, you see research in Russia, you see research in all of these other places, but you don't see research in Africa. You don't see research even in the United States. If you have 50 participants, 25 men and 25 women, you don't know how many people of color that are in that research. So that's number one, the clinical research. And then second, when it's educational materials. So, and I'm going to take this back as a teacher when I taught in the classroom. I made sure that the students saw themselves in the materials that I use, whether it was any type of educational materials, they saw pictures that looked like them, right? When it was activities that we did, I made sure it was culturally relevant. So with educational materials, when it comes to healthcare, you have to make sure the audience that you're targeting can understand the materials, number one. Number two, they see themselves in the materials. So that's a huge, huge factor. And then third, in advocacy spaces. Again, you and I have talked about this in different spaces and places. I'm the only person of color. So it's like, where are the people? Let's have a full representation of those who are impacted by these diseases and issues that are going on. Let's, not only have certain people at the table. Let's have a diverse collective of people that are at the table.
Julie experienced this firsthand. The lack of diversity in clinical research is very real. Here's the truth: we're all made up of unique DNA, and certain populations are more prone to specific comorbidities that can affect how we respond to treatment. But how would we even know that if those groups aren't included in the trials? What Julie's talking about isn't just about checking a box or showing diverse faces in a brochure. This isn't about optics, it's about outcomes. This is medical science. When clinical trials don't include a wide range of participants, we're left with huge gaps in knowledge. We literally don't know how certain treatments might affect different communities. And that's not just a missed opportunity, it's a dangerous blind spot.
I received a treatment, and the treatment, one of the side effects that happened to me happened to another patient, and both of us were women of color. However, there were other patients that received the same treatment, but they did not experience those side effects that I did and the other person did. So that, I believe, is telling. And so when this treatment was done with the clinical trial, I'm curious to know who experienced the type of side effects that we experience when they did this clinical trial, like specifically what demographic of people experienced that side effect.
Julie's story is the perfect example of why diversity in clinical trials isn't just a nice to have, it's a non negotiable when it comes to patient safety. So I asked her, how do we start rebuilding trust? How do we encourage more participation from communities of color? Yes, it's about education, but it's also about something deeper: real trust built through real human connection. And let's be honest, in a health system where the average doctor's visit lasts, 12 minutes, those connections Julie's creating, they might be doing more healing than some of the meds we're prescribing. Let's hear from Julie on how she's building that trust and creating a space for patients to feel seen, heard, and empowered.
I have to tell you, since I have started sharing my story unapologetically, I have had individuals to approach me and said, I would like to talk to you because I'm going through this. My mother is going through that. I know someone who is going through such and such. And so that is a way to break those walls down and to involve individuals and have them be a part of and to get more information so they're not so apprehensive to have someone come and share their story, or they're not so apprehensive to step forward and say, you know what? I have some of those same symptoms that you have. What did you do? And I love that. I love to see that when people are being proactive and taking next steps and seeking out, what it is that they need to do.
There's this powerful ripple effect that happens when patients speak up. Research shows that for every one person who publicly shares their medical journey, an average of 7 others feel empowered to seek a diagnosis or start treatment. 7. That's the power of one voice. When we share our stories, we're not just talking, we're reaching out. We're saying to someone out there, you're not alone. And on a journey like TED, those might be the most powerful words a person can hear. Julie is doing exactly that. She's turning isolation into connection, fear into hope. One conversation, one patient, one story at a time.
Absolutely. I've had a difficult journey, and I firmly believe it is for me to share that journey, to draw others in.
Before we wrapped up, I asked Julie what wisdom she'd share with someone just starting their TED journey, especially someone who might be feeling alone or invisible in the process.
I like being asked this question. Number one, you are the best person to tell your story. Number two, if it doesn't feel right to you, it's not right. Number three, ask, seek, and you will find. Ask, where should you go? What should you do? Seek it out. Find a physician that works for you, and you will be well on to your way of your whole self.
I'll never forget what Julie said about being the only person of color in the room during so many of her advocacy experiences. It's a powerful reminder that healing isn't just about finding the right medication. It's about seeing yourself reflected in the journey. What moves me most about Julie is how she took that pain and turned it into purpose. Instead of accepting the status quo, she chose to become the representation she couldn't find. If Julie's story resonated with you, I hope you'll share it. Because every time we amplify voices like hers, we make it just a little easier for the next person diagnosed with this disease to find someone who looks like them, someone who gets it, someone who shows them that they're not alone. Thank you for listening to this episode of Through Our Eyes, a Bloodstream Media production and hosted by me, Andrea Perryman. If you'd like to sponsor the show or get in touch, you can reach us at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com, and we'd love to hear from you. For more inspiring content and conversations from the Bloodstream Media Podcast Network, visit bloodstreammedia.com. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time on Through Our Eyes.